Hi, you are watching SightsIn Plus and this is Vomesh Srivastava. Please to subscribe the channel for the HR news, for HR updates and conversation with the top-notch CHROs, thought leaders and business heads. Today we are trying to dive deep happiness at the workplace. And we have two experts. Let me introduce Mr. Shaleen Manik, he's Chief Human Resource Officer at Transsion India, and Mr. Sriram as his Chief Happiness Expert at Our Happiness Matters. So, welcome both of you. And Sriram, directly, I would like to come to you with a straight question that how do you decode the happiness at workplace?
Uh, so it is, it's a big answer to a very small question. Like in our own case, if you ask what makes you happy, right, there are multiple things that will come up. And similarly, if we look at an organization, so it's not a simple single point agenda. Oh, we will do a party and we will do this and people will become happy, right? So it is a much broader theme that we are talking of happiness. And obviously, I've been working on this theme for a while. So it's I'd like to explain that model a little bit more. So when you look at any relationship, and workplace is a relationship, it is not that the employer is there to make the employee happy. It is a joint relationship where both parties are together for a purpose. That purpose is really about sustaining business. It's about profitability. It's about, kind of achieving more together. Right? Now, to achieve something together, both have to work together. That's the first thing, which is that the employer has to make the employee happy, and the employee has to make the results of the employee good enough so that the employer is happy. So both have to work together. And that is the first thing. Often we understand it as a one-way thing. Oh, you have to do something for the employee alone. It's not that way. It's a two-way game. And when both parties are helping each other, then it works beautifully. I think that's the first part of understanding this as a concept. Now, what entails this is really, first is that obviously from a company standpoint, the company is looking for profitability, productivity, and a positive workplace. And a positive workplace is one where there is engagement, less attrition, and so on. So broadly, it's the results that make the company happy. Okay. So now, if that has to be achieved, there are two parts. One is what I'm calling as human excellence. Human excellence is about an individual becoming a happier self, happier teams, and happier leaders. So there are three parts to it. That human excellence is really about that there are three main constituents who kind of are part of the organization. If you can make those constituents happier, then that leads to excellence. Now, to make that happier, there is something that is involved, right? One is, of course, the individual themselves has to participate in that process. They need to be taught, they need to learn how to become, kind of happier. And then the organization has to enable it. The second part is in terms of what the organizational, what I call as the human first or human centered ecosystem. That human centered ecosystem is largely to say that there are elements. One is that there is a work cycle, things around work. What kind of work? What kind of people are you working? What kind of customers? So what is my work experience? Second is the employee life cycle experience, which is about, as an employee, I go through induction, I go through performance, I go through training, I go through compensation, etc. How do you enhance that? And the last part is, of course, the framework of enablers, which is like my process, policies, benefits, etc. So these are the two elements which kind of contribute. Now, one missing piece that I see today in all organizations is that there is a vision and there is values, and they're completely disconnected from what happens on the ground, right? Somebody will say something in the induction and rarely you will mention it in some decisions that you're making. But really, your culture today is more of a self-sustained culture. It is just that there are certain leaders who behave a certain way. People under them imbibe that behavior, but there is no prescribed culture code which is systematically propagated. So there is, on top of both the human excellence and the infrastructure, really there is a human, what I call as a human OS or a human code, which has to drive, which is the principles, why we exist. What is our best self and how will we get there? That's the whole point of saying, what is my OS? What is the driving, thing that we exist and how can we propagate that? Now that has to be the on top where we say, okay, I have about 25 to 30 principles, beliefs, culture code, whatever you call first, to drive who we will be, what we will be, how we will exist. That then has to manifest in these two buckets, which is human excellence and the human first infrastructure or ecosystem. So that's my big, framework of what happiness is. So obviously it's not a small answer, but it's a comprehensive answer.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. That is very comprehensive and very beautifully you have explained that what is the happiness at workplace. Shaleen, now I would like to come to you. According to you, what makes the employees happy at work?
Look, as Sriram mentioned, I completely resonate with him. Happiness is basically a very complex affair and has got a lot of contributing factor. So for me, as a CHRO, the one biggest thing which I feel makes an employee happy is positive work culture. I think that's the key. And there are many aspects of it. It talks about the culture of trust, respect, and collaboration. Because when you have that, you will have that sense of belongingness, and more so in this current times is psychological safety. That is very, very important. Now when you have that, the another thing which organization should definitely take care of is that you should give people a meaningful work, because if they have a purpose in their work and they feel then they're contributing to the larger vision of the organization, then they will be happy, because at the end of the day when they are moving out of their houses, they are there to really contribute, and giving them meaningful work really helps that. Another aspect is to ensure that we are in today's environment, almost 30% of the workforce is Gen Zs, right? And for them, it's not all about work, it's all about balancing many other things. So for them, work-life balance also plays an important role, which is why you will see the various aspect of work models is really successful, because they know it's the end of the day, it's a job that they need to deliver, not the time that they spend in the organization. So work-life balance is very, very important. Organization, if you see giving the work-life balance, you will find there are many people who are happy per se, and they talk good about the organization. Plus, today, if you see, people would like to do multiple jobs. They don't want to stick around a particular role for over a period of time, like last year when the boomers were there. Gen Z is all about contributing, experiencing, moving on, learning new skills, and then move on. So opportunity for them to learn new skills and moving across the positions, career ladder will really help them. So that is also makes today's workforce happy. And another thing, the sense of empowerment, which means that there is no micromanagement by the leaders, because that really piss them off. It's all about giving them empowerment, accountability, and ensure that you will get the work done. Plus, earlier what we used to see is that we used to have recognition like annual or a 6 monthly long service, but today's workforce is looking for the very personalized gratitude. And you will see that smallest of the things which makes these Gen Zs happy, and it's quite appreciated. So they feel very valued and appreciated if the reward and recognition program happens, I would say instantaneously. Instant gratification really puts them in a very driving seat, and they feel happy about it. Plus, a role of the managers plays a big role, because if you have a supportive manager who supports the team member, provides flexibility, ensure the job is done rather than doing a micromanagement. When an organization really looks into all those aspects, makes more or less employee happy. And on top of it, which I would say the cherry on the cake, is that competitive pay with a lot of fairness, because people talk about diversity and inclusion, pay equity and all that, but any organization really takes care of fairness in terms of pay, and competitive in terms of how they are paying across the market industry, really makes them a holistic happy employee. And so that's my take in terms of what makes employee happy in current workspaces.
Beautifully. I think you have highlighted certain points, that with the trust, that with the respect. You are talking about the appreciation, some compensation parts, some positive work culture. There's also some time we see the processes in the organization, maybe the process for any approval. So that if the process is very complex, so that is also sometimes a factor that may influence the happiness of the employee. If the process is easy, process is direct, then I think this is also one of the factor that may influence the happiness of the employee.
Yeah,
Sriram, how do you see what are the more factors? Because India is an emotional country, generally we call it, and there is also one report by the Annual World Happiness by this 2024, and according to this, India is now at 126 place out of 143. How do you see this?
I don't think it is entirely true, but I also don't think that it's entirely false. So, see, with the wisdom culture that we have, we certainly need to be much higher in that thing. Our problem, of course, is one is that it's a large country, it has a lot of population, so it's not easy for things to be done quickly, and that's why there is so much struggle and strife. But at the same time, I think we've had with the heritage and the culture and the wisdom that exists in our culture, I don't think we've done enough to tap into it. Just simple things like meditation is this absolute superpower, which which now is being studied by the West. They are now going to understand how powerful it is. They're going to make it part of curriculum for schools, for colleges. After that, we will then kind of copy them and say, oh, we also have to do it. Whereas we knew it 5,000 years ago. And if we just used it, we would, kind of be far ahead of thing. Even now, if you look at a lot of the Western companies, a lot of Indians who are becoming CEOs. That's not by fluke. That's not just as a thing, right? It's largely because of their EQ. That's where the whole differentiator is. It's not the IQ. It's not the IQ. It's the EQ. It's a combination of the thing, and largely because of the EQ is where that difference is coming. So we have that advantage, we have that lineage, but we need to do more for ourselves. That's certainly something that's important. But I just want to kind of go back to our topic and kind of also say, when it comes to the workplace, really the two things that somebody wants is that they want what I call as expression, and second is experience. If you can take care of both these things, where you can allow me to express my best self at work through different means, but that allowing that expression means I need to be challenged enough. I need to be given the right kind of care. I need to be given the elements that that was mentioned in terms of psychological safety. All of them has to really contribute to making me express my best talent. If the organization can enable that, automatically my motivation goes up, my inspiration goes up, and then money becomes a less important factor. It matters, obviously. Nobody wants to get underpaid, but people don't care about money as much if they have a good ecosystem, if they have good friends, if they're doing good work, they have a nice place to work in, then money is not as important. When these things are a little shaky, then money becomes a point of comparison. Then they don't see a reason why, okay, somebody else is paying me 1 lakh more. Why should I, not go there? And then there is no reasonable explanation that they can give themselves and say, okay, let me go there. And that is what is happening. So one is the whole idea of, how do we get people to express their best selves by enabling them, giving them challenging work, giving them meaning, giving them purpose, inspiring them, taking care of them, and so on. The second is, of course, the experience part, which is in terms of all the elements that I mentioned earlier, the ecosystem, and all of that has to, kind of give them a good experience. If you can do both, see, largely understand that happiness is when your reality is better than your expectation, you're happy. That is true of life, that is true of work. So most times the reality falls short of your expectations. And that's where the struggle is, right? When you can balance it, which also means that, one is managing that expectation properly, but also doing enough. When people genuinely know that you care about them, right? Like a family, when you are really taken care of, then people also reciprocate, which is why this whole element of trust is like, in my old firm that I was there, we used to have a sick leave policy where we had 12 days sick leave, and by October onwards, the sick leave percentage will start going up from an average of some, 4 to 5 the entire year. The next 3 months, it will touch another 4 to 5. So it will end up being around 10, 10 and a half. And then we realize, obviously, it's not a very ethical thing, right? People are using it in a different way. So we said we will remove that cap. We made it unlimited sick leave. And what happened was that the whole percentage dropped from 10.5 to 7.5 and stayed there for the next 5-6 years. It's not that there was no abuse. There were a few people who were kind of misusing it, and those were caught. And when they were caught, they were punished quite severely. But the fact is that you have to extend trust and stay with it. Most times our rules are that I don't, when you look at it deeply enough, what you're telling people is that I don't trust you to be professional. And hence I have all these rules. And when you put all those rules, what are you telling people? Saying, okay, I will follow the rules because that's what it is. Right? When you really trust people, you have to become, policy light, where you have a certain framework, not that thing. When abuse happens, you step in, get it back, trust people to think. We have, and that is where I think we, as a culture also, the Western culture is very rule-based. We are very relationship-based. So now we've taken the Western world's rules, put it in a relationship culture. Obviously, there is a little bit of disconnect over there. Let me pause over there. Yeah.
Yeah, true, true. So Western countries are a little more rule-based, more data-driven. But as far as the ranking is concerned, so that is also improving. Earlier it was 133, and last year it has been 125. A little dip this year, 126, but that ranking is also improving. Shaleen, we discussed a couple of pointers and the factors that influence the happiness at workplace. Right now, if you see, so the flexibility and work-life balance, that is also very important factor when we talk about the happiness. How do you see the flexibility and work-life balance?
Flexibility and work-life balance is extremely important because, as I mentioned it to you, uh, the workspaces is now have a decent team mix, and more Gen Zs who are taking up the work, or they are getting into the workspaces. It is more and more important for an organization to give importance to the flexibility and work-life balance, because today's generation, they are not very keen to do work at all times. They need breaks, they need benefits, and they would like to really balance their work and their life, and they don't want to mix it together. So it is very clear, because a lot of surveys has happened internally, externally. There are articles which are mentioned. They don't want to get forced and ask them to work at all times. If you do so, you will find out that attritions go above the roof. So organization has found out that, and obviously they need the young generation, because that's how the future lies in. So flexibility and work-life balance is very, very important, which is why you will see a lot of new work models. We have seen COVID is obviously is one of the incidents that has happened, and because of which there are new models have been. Otherwise, most of the IT companies were anyways falling, but not religiously. But now it becomes a part of the game, and it is almost there in all organizations who are growing and doing well. So it is continue to happen. It is now been framed, and it is going to be stay for long. Organization who are giving flexibility to young generation, putting up a lot of benefit program, wellness program, well-being programs, and ensuring that it's not about work, which is they demand at all times. It's all about how they are balancing their life, will always have an edge in terms of attracting the talent, and that would continue. And you will find that previously what used to happen, that what the well-being used to be, it's only insurance and maybe few more. But now you will see financial wellness, well-being, mental well-being, psychological well-being. There are multiple programs that the HR and the organization is looking forward to introduce, to make sure that every aspect of the people life cycle which constitute the well-being will be well taken care by the organization, and they want good talent to stick around, because there is a really fierce war of talent. If you really want to attract them, retain them, then you need to have the best of the policies and benefit to offer. Otherwise, there are organizations who are there for kill. So it is going to stay, and I think hybrid model is one, because when we have seen that people are working from home, it did not work out well because there was a lot of issues in terms of managing workforce. But hybrid workforce model is going to stay, wherein it gives a quite a flexibility and I would say equilibrium from an organization perspective also to maintain and retain talent. So that is going to continue for long.
Absolutely, Shaleen. Sriram, we get confused sometimes when we look for the employee experience, employee engagement, job satisfaction, happiness at workplace. How do you distinguish, or how do you see the relationship between these all the terminologies?
Quickly, I want to comment on the flexibility part, and then I'll answer your question. See, the idea of flexibility and the fact that it's important is not lost on anybody, including the management or the employee. The problem is with two aspects, which is that I want my output to be a certain way. And the way that the management or a company knows to achieve that output is through control. See, the whole idea of management, the word itself came from, controlling the output through a certain way of working. So that is how our whole philosophy of management itself has evolved, that it dictates a certain way of doing things with the objective of achieving. Now, that was great in the time of machines because you didn't want people to do something because the machine has to have a certain input and output. You go and meddle with it, you'll get the wrong things. Now we moved away from machines. We've come largely to humans and computers who are doing most of this work. So obviously it's changing, but the whole mindset of control has not gone away. Because control is there even in our personal lives because it is fear-based. When we have control, there is a feeling of security. If you do it this way, I know what will happen. And that is why I want you to do it this way. So it's very easy, right? Which is what is now conflicting with the concept of flexibility, which is that when I want to give you flexibility, I have to let go of control. And not everybody has gotten comfortable with that idea. So it has to be a little bit of a push and pull. Flexibility is the way to go because it's giving you a lot more open options, right? You can access talent from different places. There are the talent pools which couldn't, kind of work, especially with, women coming back to work. The flexibility is such a huge thing because you've tapped into a talent pool which was, kind of not being used effectively to now actually contribute. The more flexibility, the more gig you can go. See, the future is in a flexible way of working. There's no doubt. The more flexible you can be, the more results you will achieve. So there's absolutely no, kind of question about it. So that's my, take on that. Now, in terms of employee engagement, employee experience, and happiness, my answer is clear, saying that, people think, for a long time, actually, HR used to be thought more as an event manager, because people used to say, okay, because that's what is visible. Most times, okay, what is HR doing? Oh, they will do some activity, they will do some training, they will do some party. That's the, kind of brand that we did. And obviously, it did help to an extent, from a fact that it is a de-stressor. It gives people, some option to have some fun. And all of that is good. But that's not a strategy. It's a momentary kind of thing. Just like, you're tired and you want to have, a break. That is what those things cater to. But when you're looking at an employee experience, it is not a HR problem. It is a combination of what HR does, what the manager does, how the team does work, and how, the overall management of the company is treating people. So that is what employee experience is. Often we think of employee experience, if you go and talk, it's more like a HR topic where you're saying, okay, we're talking about induction, we're talking about performance and all of that. That's not what it is. What is the employee experiencing in a day-to-day basis? He's experiencing work. He's experiencing manager. He's experiencing teammates. Once in a way, he's experiencing parties. Once in a way, he's experiencing, your get-togethers and things like that. So then what is more important? What I experience daily is what is important. And that has nothing to do with HR. It has to do with the entire ecosystem being. So then the focus is on culture. Focus is on how I'm treated on a day-to-day basis when the organization can, through policies, through processes, through leaders, through managers, through the kind of work I do, enable, me to have a good experience by treating me well at every stage. How do you give feedback? I know nobody is perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. When I make a mistake, how do you treat me? Simple thing. There is no guideline. It is left to the manager to decide. So one manager will be angry, another manager will be nice. Both may not be right. And that is where the problem is. We have not gone deep enough into training people in human behavior, saying this is how you need to train yourself to be in these circumstances so that we get the best out of people, not for any, kind of just to be nice, but just to say that we are doing everything for a purpose. Like if we are doing performance management today, the fact is performance management has become like a process where you have a document, there is a system, you record everything, and then the conversation is about telling what is recorded to justify saying, oh, this rating you're getting because of these things I've given you here. And what is the result of that conversation? 90% of people walking out of performance conversation are uninspired. Only about 5% you ask them may say, oh, okay, I had a good conversation. I'm inspired to do well. 90, including your top performers, don't walk out inspired. So there is fundamentally something wrong with the way we are doing things, where process is all fine. Everything is, as per what needs to be done, but it's not achieving the objective. The objective is you inspire people to greatness, you motivate them, you support them, you give them that hope that, hey, okay, you didn't do well, but we are there for you. We will support you this way. Let's talk about, but it's all about what you did wrong. Now, how is that fellow going to go back and say, okay, I was told all the 10 things I did wrong. Tomorrow onwards, I'm going to do all the right things. No, I'm just going to be demotivated. I'm going to sulk. So that's where, our whole experience, when you talk about employee experience, these are the things that matter. We have to go deeper into saying, how are we really making employees experience us on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute, hour-to-hour basis?
Right, Sriram. Shaleen, so this is all about the culture. We are talking about the culture, how we can create the positive work culture in organization, how we treat the employees. So this is a relationship, basically. This is the culture. How do you see how we can foster a culture where we see, more people are engaged, they are feeling happy, and the positive work culture. How we can create this? How you create in your organization?
One of the ways to really build a culture of happiness, obviously, employee experience, where Sriram mentioned that it's not about really having interactions and touch points at a HR level. It's all about when the person enters into the organization and how the person feels, and every interaction makes the person's employee. But one of the point that I would like to mention, wherein really makes this culture-driven exercise, is by leaders. Leadership plays an extremely big role in terms of really making a happy organization, because they are the people who set the tone, who demonstrate trust, collaboration, the way they interact with people. They talk about commitment in terms of well-being. It's not about obviously top line and bottom line. The way they feel that in the organization employee should be treated makes a huge difference in the way people perceive the organization, and they would like to work with that kind of an organization for a long time. So leadership, the way they really communicate, have their communication open with the team. They talk about everything bad, good with the team members and expect them to contribute with their ideas. You would have seen many organizations wherein they have gone through difficult times, but the way leadership team has really gone out, be open with them, get their buy-in, and you would find out that even if the toughest of the time, employees are not leaving. Why they are not leaving? It's very easy. If the company is not doing well, for them is to step out of the boat is very easy. But since they are happy, they're glued to that organization, they feel that fundamentally they are still be committed and satisfied. It's okay, the organization is going through a tough time, but since the leader is that much very believe in people's well-being and will say that things is going to get better, stick around it. So this is very, very important. The way they appreciate people, the smallest of the thing. There are times where people make mistake and they don't go bizarre about it. They say, okay, mistake is a part of learning journey. And when you do mistakes and you grow, because you get to know what you're not supposed to do in future. And that's how the journey. And there are many big organizations who will find that the group of people, they get into a project, if they have falter, they've been still be appreciated. Okay, they're not being fired then. So fundamentally, if the leaders lead by example and making sure that in every employee well-being journey, they contribute, they take the center stage and ask people to follow, you will find that people generally stick around that. So for me, while there are many contributing factors, and we spoke about it in the previous questions, but one important aspect wherein people look up to, because leaders are the role models, they drive organization not only from the business perspective but taking people along with them in for future, so makes a very big and important role. So that's my take.
Right. Shaleen, so overall, this is about the culture, how you treat your employees, and the compensation is also one of the factor that will influence the your happiness and what are the processes in the organization that is also the part of this, how the work relationships are there, that also matters. So this is overall a culture. So thank you so much, Sriram, for joining the conversation, and Shaleen for sharing your wonderful thoughts. Thank you so much.